afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. And we are very glad to be able to share this moment with you.
Yeah, we'll try to make it brief, fun, and interesting as we can. And I would like also to thank FESPA for inviting us to be here. That over there, it's my friend and colleague, Daniel. And that over here, it's a version of him, all right? It's not a photographic reproduction of him, but an interpretation. Both the real and the version stand for the same person and convey the same message. Daniel is an interior architect, designer, but he's also a sports person and a lot else. He can be a clown and a party animal, or as we say within the professional environment, he's a natural PR.
And that's Felipe's head, one big head like the real one, and a big heart head as well. Felipe is also a designer, or he tried, and he first became a graphic designer and crossed over to interior designer. But he also likes to write and talk, maybe too much. So I'm here to make him stick to the script and keep it short.
Thank you very much. Well then, in short, let's say we are an interior design agency. We are designers who like to relate closely to our clients, and we'd like to help them write their business stories, hoping that these business stories are successful stories, and also hoping that these stories become real.
Nevertheless, when we choose materials, we are not so worried about the reality. Why would you be?
As we will see later, okay, reality, honesty, in some contexts, is much overrated. All right? Do you really mind Pamela's breast not being real?
To be honest, not really.
Do you think people who buy these mind them not being real? Or do you think they are precisely buying them because they are bigger, better, or can do things the real one can't do? Because they are easier to maintain, all right? Or they cost less, all right? What do you reckon?
I knew size didn't matter.
It does. Apparently, so I've heard so. It does matter, but also looks matter, cost matter, all right? And maintenance matter. But let's keep it less prosaic, all right? We'd like to think of corporate spaces as bubbles, all right? Bubbles are shiny, slippery, perfectly rounded, and transparent. They are not only see-through capsules of air, they are also capsules of time. They are brief side-engaging moments, moments that manage to evoke other moments, other memories, mostly positive, while they last, until they pop. But as appealing as the side of a bubble may be to most, no one expects a bubble to last forever, or to be made of crystal, for instance. If we were to have a bubble to last longer, to be hard, or large enough to fit one of us inside, forcefully, we would need to make it from something different than soap. We would need to betray the true nature of the original bubble. We will need to try out other materials that, while looking the same, will feel and perform differently. We will need to fake it. As we said, we like to think of retail and corporate spaces as such bubbles, delicate but meaningful time capsules that need to convey positive and appealing messages to the audience, but also a sight or an experience that needs to last longer than a soap bubble. So we need to make it out something different.
Okay, but does it need to last forever?
No, it also needs to pop.
Why?
Well, mostly because of trends, all right? Trends have a given lifespan, and since we as public space designers are dealing with audiences subject to such trends, we need to appeal to their ever-changing tastes and preferences. Depending on the field, its boldness and its popularity, a trend will last longer or merely exist for a moment. Also, nowadays, trends wear out considerably faster than back in the Middle Ages when the Gothic style went on for about 300 years, all right? Or during the 20th century when trends changed with the decade. Today, everyone knows fashion trends last only for months, just a season, all right? And that most probably a new music style, a new music trend will come up every 4 or 5 years. Within the architecture field, trends still last longer due to the material nature of their creation, but also due to the cost. Nevertheless, when it comes to interior architecture, the pattern is beginning to change. Formally attached to the larger architecture trend cycles, interior design, updating pressure has increased. Detaching itself from the built envelope, it can now manage to mimic faster changing trends, such as fashions. And this changing pace does not seem to be slowing down.
Well, so you are saying that trends are always smoothly changing.
They are smoothly, probably not so smoothly. I mean, these trends, they kind of react to one another, all right? So the shift of direction is rather radical and abrupt. For instance, we just recently went from loving mute, very silent, pure, minimalistic environments to feeling suffocated within them, like we were the stain in between all this perfection and spotlessness. As a result, the challenge we are nowadays facing every time we choose materials to create interior design scheme is not simple. We need to create a bubble out of something that lasts longer than soap, but less than stone. Something that costs like paint, that changes like light, something lightweight like paper, and easy like tiles.
Okay, so stone is heavy, steel is expensive, and wood needs to be maintained. And you can change these materials so much?
Yes, you cannot change them, that's true. But while we still like the looks of these finishes, the appearance of the real thing, we don't care so much for its lasting properties, for its maintenance requisites, for its cost, for its steadiness. We don't care, or we can't afford it. Bottom line is, we don't need it. Why do we need to make it out of stone if it needs to last a month? Why should we use wood if we cannot afford to maintain it? Why should we pay for steel if we have other options, as shiny and as hard as steel, but much cheaper?
Truth is, we simply don't. We can fake it.
We reckon we can provide spaces with the material appeal by using fake versions of the real thing, of the original. An appeal enhanced by its capacity to change and be transformed. By the inexpensive installation procedures they demand, but also by the extra layers of meaning and creativity the formal translation poses.
So you think imitation is the answer?
Could be the answer. I could say yes, I could say no. I mean, we are talking about imitations, but not about those imitations that became so popular back in the 70s and the 80s. We are talking about, instead, about reinterpretations, about reinterpreted materials, about fusion, of properties, about a combination of practical and expressive possibilities. This is when we start talking about large format mixed media printing.
Well, we are talking about paper.
Yes, we're talking about paper, but not about paper exclusively. We all know paper ceased to be the only available printing media a long time ago. Fabric went first, followed by synthetic fibers and thin laminates. Nevertheless, printing devices' allowance for thickness and whiteness has been constantly increasing, making the printing of metallic sheetings, wooden floors, and mosaic tiles a reality. By replacing common ink with latex-based compounds, printing became not only visual, but tactile. And the imitation of the real gained texture and tactile quality. It also gained realism, gradually resembling the original more and more, until they became just as regular looking and dated like the object of their imitation. Suddenly, they no longer stood for innovation. Innovation through imitation is an art. One type of art that needs to realize what to imitate and when to stop, all right? But one also that should allow a reference to its inspiration, but also add creative and expressive value. One that should provide a twist, all right? The task is then not just to simulate, but to stimulate the media.
As Da Vinci once said, poor is the pupil who does not surpass his matter.
That is true with masters and pupils, and it's true again with imitators and imitations. Otherwise, they prove themselves mere impostors. And I think it is precisely that fear to be perceived as an imposter, right? That fear to prescribe a bad imitation, what has prevented us from exploiting all the potential that large format mixed media printing has within the interior design field. What has created a haggard nostalgia for true original materials, regardless of the inconveniences their use may represent. It is the lack of interpretation what has eventually triggered resistance among common users and trendsetters.
And how do we shake off that fear?
We can only shake off that fear through the exercise and the witnessing of creativity. That fear only disappears once an original feature is added to the formula.
It can be the use of color, a graphic interpretation of texture, or powerful lettering arrangement, or just an unlikely setup.
That's right. And also, by looking at all the advantages imitation within context can stand for.
Yeah. Creative interpretation and originality are always effective if you want to generate impact.
That's true. In this project, that's a project we did like 2 years ago in our studio. The client was a large format printer, like some of you are. And the task was to dress up a facade of a building that was to host interior design fair, all right? At first, we wanted to cover the whole thing. But the client, as usual, had a very, very tight budget. Therefore, we decided that we wanted to make the facade virtually disappear. We wanted to replicate the windows, all right? Then we thought, why replicate the windows if we can also come up with new windows, to have the windows we want? And afterwards we say, why do we need to come up with new windows if there are so many beautiful windows in Madrid?
You all know that the economic situation in Spain has been difficult, and still. And people has been working crestful for years now, and well, we wanted people in Madrid to look up.
Yes, we wanted them to look up. We wanted to open windows at a time when doors were being slammed at your face. We wanted to turn this facade into the architectonical window digest of the city. Yeah, that's right.
And this inside, we set up a gallery.
Yes, in the lobby of the building, we set up this gallery, all right, where the graphics outgrew the framing of the prints, covered the walls, and poured down the flooring, creating graphic carpets, adding texture to the walls, mimicking metallic joinery, all right? Should have we prescribed the real thing and its according money investment for an event that was only to last a month? I bet if we had, the space wouldn't have been so successful, and the client wouldn't have been able to afford it.
In this project, the bias was also an important
This is the look of
restriction.
the whole thing. Sorry, Daniel, again. Say it again.
Okay, yeah. In this project as well, the budget was also an important restriction.
Yes. Here we were asked to design the public restrooms of the same design fair, but in a previous edition. All right? We didn't want to add another style proposal within a context where already so many style proposals were thrown at the public.
Yeah, we created an oasis.
Yeah, it was much more like a Zen-like Japanese-inspired oasis. Here we reinterpreted the very famous prints, Japanese prints, the Kaganawa wave and the koi fish prints, but we translated that into the graphic language of mosaic tiling.
But they were not tiles.
Okay, no, they were not tiles at all. These were vinyl, printed, and flat versions of tiles, ones that were much easier to produce, install, and maintain. A type of tiles that would not last enough in a home or other permanent facility, but a type of tiling much more convenient and perfectly suited for a temporary installation.
But it can be used for much more than wall coverings.
That's true. As you can see in this project that we call Print Avenue, nearly everything can be printed.
From furniture to flooring, from ceiling acoustic panels to wallpaper and light boxes.
It is just a matter of choosing the right type of printed media. Here, the client, again, a large format printer, wanted us to create a walk-in catalog of printed surfaces. We wanted to do more than a showroom. So we came up with the concept of resembling a Monopoly board game. Each of the boxes of the board, instead of being a property, were to display a material or printable media, a life-size sample. The counter, it was the place where you collected the chip and the dice.
But it didn't look like the Monopoly game.
Yes, it didn't. I mean, it doesn't have the same feeling as the Monopoly game because we wanted to go further past just resembling the Monopoly board game. We wanted to give it a spin, to give it a more vintage, trendier look. So we opted for an overly dark atmosphere, and we went for the engraved-like vintage lettering to give it that industrial appeal.
And the client and clients were very happy with the result.
They were very happy indeed, but most importantly, can you imagine how much would it have cost to have all those textures actually caved and engraved into real materials? How many craftsmen would have needed to be involved in that, and how much time?
For that to only last a month.
The thing is, we needed to get real and we needed to fake it.
So faking is the new thing?
Well, faking can hardly said to be the new thing, a new thing, but it's proven itself useful and therefore an innovative trend. And as with every innovative trend, it raises eyebrows and encounters resistance.
But it's always like that. The trains, airplanes, telephones, you name it. They all face it resistance.
Could not agree more. Personally, paper books will always have a place in my heart, and I will always prefer them over their screen-based counterparts. That is all right for me to say, but not so much if I was, for example, Amazon's CEO. Likewise, it is all right for grandma to want to have her kitchen tile, but not so much for a designer to prescribe concrete walls for a window shop. All right?
If this is true, then what's going to happen with print?
I think large format printing will evolve in the similar manner as small format printing did, from handwriting, drawing to press, and from press into the screen supported. Likewise, large format printing, going back to the Altamira caves, to the Renaissance frescoes, and more recently to graffiti, thanks to digital technology, has taken the shape of backlight murals, spectacular billboards, graphic facades, huge vinyl decorated surfaces, and graphic pattern carpets, only then to make the leap into the screen and the light emitting diode. We will be talking about ever-changing walls, touch screen facades, patterns on demand, selective transparency, and interactive textures.
Yeah, but we can see those already. It's ink going to disappear?
Don't know if ink, probably, I don't know. In accordance to this, ink will indeed be soon extinct, but printers, on the other hand, will not. You will continue to do what you know how to do and what you have been doing all along. You will still be in charge of delivering messages over various media, but instead of plotting them with dark ink strokes, you will be doing so with beams of the brightest light. And this is our presentation for today. All right.